Well, you can hardly watch a sporting event these days without a mention of the gambling angle. A look at the real effects of gambling. Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show. Coming up. We have two guests on the program today. Our first guest hails from Toronto. He started gambling as a preteen. He lost a business because of gambling. He has struggled in relationship because of gambling. He's a self-described degenerate gambler. Over 6 months of recovery now from gambling. He's an entrepreneur, Jonny Silverstein. And also from Toronto, an addiction counselor from Addiction Rehab Toronto. He has the ICADC and CCAC designations, specializing in gambling addiction, group facilitation, and case management. He has recovered from addiction himself. Allen Kharlip. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, guys. It's great. You know, like we're tackling a problem today that not many sports shows will, for obviously reasons, partly because, of course, many, and if not all of sports shows nowadays are sponsored by betting services. Of course, we aren't, we won't be, and because of that, we feel like we're armed to be able to handle this situation. But I want to begin with you, Jonny, because we had a couple of great conversations, talked about your history. First of all, how did you get hooked on gambling?
So it really started for me at a very young age. My dad used to take me to the horse track, and from there, it kind of he would let me make bets on horses, just going by color or name or whatever. And when I won, he would then let me have the winnings, like in a credit. Like I can go to Toys R Us, or I could spend it however I wanted. And it started off like that. I was like, wow, gambling is fun, and if you bet money, you win more money. So it started off probably at the age of like 7 or 8, maybe even younger. And from there, it kind of just snowballed as I got older into, I mean, it turned into poker, and then it turned into casinos, and then it turned into more casinos and online casinos and sports betting.
I just got off the phone just before the show from a good friend of mine, Rod. We've been friends since we were 5 years old, and his story is so close to yours. It's unbelievable. When he was about 10 years old, his uncle took him to the racetrack, and he won $42, was able to keep it. And from that moment on, he was absolutely hooked. And then when Sports Select came out at the beginning in Alberta, Sports Select, you would win hats and you would T-shirts and stuff like that. And then eventually when he started to bet, he said the first bet he had two, he had to pick three games. He picked two right, and the third one was tie. And he was that close, and he kept trying to get his money back. At one point, he lost, he estimated $200,000. He stole money from his wife. He robbed the company that he worked for. He took their bank deposit, a $30,000 theft. He got caught, of course. He lost his job, went to jail, and ruined a relationship with his boss, who he felt like, who treated him like a son. It was a devastating situation. Did you have something similar happen in your life when it comes to, the devastating consequences?
I mean, I've had a lot of devastating consequences. I've had run-ins with pretty much every bookie in the city, the Italian bookies and the Russians, and I've had debts so deep that I had to borrow money from loan sharks to pay them back, and it was in the tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I've had a lot of run-ins like that. It also ruined the current relationship that I'm in. We broke up multiple times because of my gambling addiction, and then finally, thanks to her, I mean, that she's the reason why I finally started to get the help that I needed. And it's been a slow road, but a great road since.
Well, you mentioned to me, and when we talked earlier, that you had a business as well that you lost basically as a result of the addiction.
Yeah, my apologies. I forgot about that. I actually had a tattoo shop in Yorkville, And for the first year, I was doing all my deposits correctly, uh, crossing all my T's, dotting all my I's, doing everything by the books. And slowly I started to really just kind of realize that there's really nobody checking on me. And this is technically my money. And instead of paying my employees and paying for bills that came in and invoices, I would take all the end of day money and go to the casino. And slowly over I took a multi-million-dollar a year business and drove it right into the ground because of my gambling, and inevitably we closed after 5 years.
You told me about the relationship problems and then obviously the business failure. What was it though? What was it that brought you to your knees?
It's I saw the pain that I was causing my now fiance. At the time she was my girlfriend, but I it was so many fights that I was causing unnecessarily, just so I could gamble, just so I would cause a fight to make her go home, or to sleep in the basement so I could just gamble all night long. And it was I mean, yeah, I had so much remorse the next day. Like, I just felt so bad about it. So that was, I mean, that, and then for me, that was, it was a really big wake up call that I was about to lose a girl that I really loved because of my addiction.
You know, as a recovered alcoholic, I know what it's like to to want to quit but not have the ability to do so. Um, Alan, why is it so hard for an addict, alcoholic, gambling addict to stop?
Well, I mean, just like any sort of addiction, the reward pleasure center in the brain, it causes a hit of dopamine, and I think what happens for anybody that abuses substances, gambles, you're trying to chase that first intense hit of dopamine, and with gambling specifically. People are trying to chase that first win, or that feeling that they get when they get that first big win, and you know what happens is people try to chase that over and over and over, where to the point where it becomes a compulsive and impulsive sort of way of acting out, and it just becomes a pattern where everything in that person's life becomes unmanageable, and all that matters is the next bet, next bet, next bet. And you're trying to chase those brain receptors that sky off that intense feeling of dopamine. So, that's really a huge component to it. I think nowadays, too, just how easily accessible sports betting is, and how easy it is for someone to place a bet, gets people in that level of exposure where it just starts to become part of the tradition of not only just watching sports, but now I can put money on it and I can enjoy it, to that point. And then when you get that win, that chase continues to happen.
Yeah, that's one of what Rod was, my friend was telling me. He says like he sees this situation now where people are sitting at home, they can smoke marijuana, drink alcohol, and make bets all in the convenience of their own living room on their phone. And it's just anybody who's got any problem with one of the three or all of the three, it could be in an awful lot of trouble. Like how bad is it getting out there, Alan?
Well, I'll tell you this. So, and this is just on record for statistics. Last year in 2023, the iGame Ontario that was formed, every province got to form their own standardized policy for gambling. So the IGO, the iGame Ontario, 63 billion what was registered in Ontario, and that's not just that's just only the statistics for online, and that's excluding illegal offshore websites. So out of that $63 billion last year that was placed on iGame Ontario, 15% of it, which is their equivalent of 10 billion, was sports betting. So you're seeing a skyrocket, an increase of volume from people that are making this a habit, a daily habit, a weekly habit, and really wanting to emphasize that as a big component to how they watch and why they watch sports. It's changed the way that people have watched sports nowadays, just how easily accessible and how much exposure there is to it.
So my buddy Rod made a comment to me. He said that that this disease, insidious disease, keeps tricking him into thinking because he's had numerous relapses over the years, into believing that he's going to get a chance to win it back. Another gambler I talked to says he really believes that the next big win is coming. And even though he's lost everything, he just realizes that the moat he has to cross to get there will drown him. Is that something you can relate to, Johnny? This idea that the next big win is there. I just
Yeah,
have to keep plugging away, but can I?
of course, it's a never ending chase. It's like there's never a win that's big enough, and every time you win, it's like if I were to win, say $100,000, and I would forget about how much it cost me to win that. The
Mm.
It was probably 100x, maybe even more to win that, and at that point I'd be like, wow, that was easy. And then and you kind of just do go like, well, that only took me an hour. When being 2 hours from now, I'd have double that. And you end up losing it all and then chasing that again. It's literally it's a never ending battle of chasing losses. And yeah, I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
No worries. You nailed it, man. I want to ask, what's the biggest win you ever had? What was the biggest win? What was some of the wins that kept you going? Like that made you believe that you were invincible and you had some
Well,
sort of superpowers. And yeah.
my first time ever in a casino, when I was 18 years old, was my first time ever going to a casino in Montreal. And I my dad gave me, I think, $200 or $300, and I ended up leaving that night, my first time ever in casino, with I had about $45,000 for an 18-year-old, which is an enormous amount of money. And that was probably the biggest at that time, the biggest win, and for pretty much a long time. Like I chased that win and gave that money back probably 1,000 times over in the following years, never ever having win like that. And then more recently, last year, I had my biggest win, I think, was like 450,000. Yeah,
Right.
but
But
that's
as you
gone,
mentioned, that's long gone. That's
long
something
gone.
you put back 10 times over. Um, you know, aside from the effects of your average gambler, I mean, we hear a lot about gambling. Obviously, it's everywhere. Former Raptor Jonte Porter was banned by the NBA recently. A league investigation determined that Porter provided confidential information to sports bettors, and he also bet on NBA games. Uh, does it surprise you, Alan, that a player who's making millions of dollars would have put himself in that position?
I mean, I think when you're caught up in the sequence of it, I mean, I'm honestly, I'm not surprised. I think that there's a lot more that goes on, that we're not aware of with professional sports athletes. A couple of years ago, there was a really prominent receiver by the name of Calvin Ridley, who played for the Atlanta Falcons at the time, who also was caught and suspended by the
Hmm.
NFL year. But I think what Javante Porter did was a lot more deeper and a lot more in depth around fixing basketball games and things like that. Whereas I think Calvin Ridley, didn't bet on his own games or fix his own games, but was caught, betting on other, sports and everything like that. So I am not surprised. I think that, like I said, that there's more that's being uncovered. And there will be more that will be uncovered. We just don't know about it. So, it's very unfortunate because it definitely ruins, professional sports and, the thing that we attach ourselves to with sports is never knowing what's going to happen. And I think, when players
Mm.
get involved in business, this type of stuff, it really, ruins the love for the sport, especially for a professional athlete who's worked so hard to get to that point where they are getting paid to do what they love. Right. So, yeah, I'm not surprised, not surprised. And I think, like I said, there's more to be uncovered.
Right. Well, recently, Shohei Otani's interpreter he
Yeah.
apparently lost millions of dollars on gambling. He was using money. He's charging people money so they could interview Otani and do other things and get close to him, making pictures and selling his memorabilia and everything just to catch up. Did you feel like you were like a dog chasing his tail sometimes, Johnny?
I always felt like a dog chasing his tail, as you said. It's just a constant, never ending struggle and chase of like going up and down, losing everything, borrowing, and then winning again. And again, you forget about all the losses every time you win. It's just, it's a sickness. And it's always a chase.
So we had Jim Maloney on the program a while back. He's a former Cincinnati Reds pitcher who tossed 2 no-hitters, and he was a teammate of Pete Rose, and it was interesting because I didn't know how he'd approach this, but Rose, of course, was banned from baseball forever. He's ineligible for the Hall of Fame. I asked Jim if he thought Rose should be in the Hall of Fame, and here's what he had to say. Let's listen to that.
When you walk into the clubhouse, there's a big sign in there that said, absolutely no gambling on baseball. If you're caught gambling and convicted, it's lifetime ban. And Pete is a gambling addict. He's addicted to gambling, and that's an illness and a disease. And he's never ever stopped. He's went to Vegas, and he had a place in Vegas there where he signed a lot of autographs, and he made lots of money, but still betting, and he never stopped betting. Never got out of the thing. And I'm sure that if he would have stopped and said, here's what gambling can do to somebody, because he ended up going to prison, and he lost a job because of gambling in baseball, and so he's definitely a Hall of Famer. That's for sure. But the way the law rules say that, I was against him getting into the Hall of Fame because of the gambling thing.
So what he's saying there is like, Jim's a recovered alcoholic, so he understands addiction. But I guess it starts with, admitting you got a problem, and we can be helpful to other addicts and alcoholics, gamblers, whatever, when we admit that we got a problem, which Pete never has. Is that the key to recovery too, Alan?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think, unfortunately, when you're in that cycle, it's really difficult to understand and realize what it is that's happening until it, consequences become a huge piece. And I think, once you're sort of leveled or beaten to a level of desperation, I think, sort of the truth really comes out, because, denial plays a huge factor for a long period of time, especially when someone's really, really enjoying it and things are going well. The mind tells you, it's not that bad. It's not that big of a problem. I can keep doing this. I can keep this up. Just like with substances, same thing. Until that person really gets into, a place where they're feeling hopeless, where they're feeling defeated, and being honest about it is a huge piece to this. And once somebody can get honest and admit they need help, I think that's when the recovery can start.
How hard has it been to face that denial, Johnny? Because I have a disease of alcoholism that tells me I don't have it. Like most diseases, it's pretty obvious that you have it, but for whatever reason, we have this disease that lies to us and tells us that we don't have it. So how difficult was it to overcome that denial piece?
It honestly took me probably the majority of my adult life. I always had a feeling that I might have a bit of a problem, but it took a long time to realize that the way that I'm gambling isn't the way that everybody else gambles. I always thought that everybody was like this. You lose your money, you want it back, so you chase it. It took me until even last year. I mean, my fiance would argue. We'd have so many arguments about her telling me that I had a problem. And I'm like, no, it's not a problem. Deep in my head, I knew, but it was denial. There's so much denial when it comes to gambling addiction, because it's hard to accept. And the worst part of accepting is once you go, okay, I'm a compulsive gambler and I need to stop. You also have to realize that you're never going to be able to chase your losses again. And you have to walk away from that. And that's a tough thing to do, I think, for a lot of people, to just go, I'll never be able to try and win that money back again, but I'm going to get better as a person, healthier.
Yeah, it's like we learn from our mistakes, right? And I did a lot of things in my disease that I regret. But the beauty of it is I don't have to do that anymore,
Right.
and that's what it kind of is. How do you stay gambling free today, Johnny?
Honestly, meetings, like I work my steps. I go to my meetings. I go to two, usually one or two meetings a week. I have a great home group with which great support system. Um, it's just taking it one day at a time and waking up every day and going, I'm not going to gamble today. This is what I did. I wake up in the morning, go, I'm not going to gamble today. A couple hours later, I'd be like, I still haven't gambled, doing well. And then by the end of the day, it's like that's one day done. And you go to bed, you
Right.
wake up the next day, and just another day of just not of I mean, but support's a huge thing. Going to meetings, finding a local place to a local meeting is the best way to start. And that's how I keep my abstinence from gambling.
Yeah, it's the same with other addiction, right? It's doing it one day at a time and staying in today, and having a community is so important, right, Alan? It's what how what tell us about the importance of community.
I mean, I think community is everything. I think, when you're dealing with any sort of addiction or, concurrent disorder, the feeling of being felt like you're alone in this is a big thing. And the essence of having, people that can understand you, that can relate with you, that can really identify and, sort of understand what it is that you're thinking, what it is that you're feeling, and how your actions have dictated, your choices throughout the course of your addiction. Something that relatability and that a feeling of not being alone is such a big deal, and feeling like, what, if other people can do it, I could do it as well, right? So that hope and inspiration that if someone else can recover, why can't I recover as well, is huge. And having that support and relatability is huge as well, and not feeling like you're alone. The opposite of addiction is connection. I truly believe that. I
Mm.
firmly believe that. And, it's something that really, really helped me in my recovery as well when I felt like I was alone. I needed other people to walk through this with me.
Yeah, you're no longer alone, right? Johnny, you were going to add to that?
I know I'm just everything he said was so on point. I was just going to say very well said. I mean, that's
Right.
exactly how I feel.
Yeah, a lot of us, when you look at it, the opposite of addiction is sobriety, gambling sobriety. But the truth is probably the opposite is connections, because we're so disconnected when we're in our addiction. Um,
Yeah.
Alan, what would you suggest that would be the road to take for somebody who might be out there, uh, experiencing or wondering if they have a gambling problem, or perhaps knowing that they have a gambling problem? What would be the steps to take?
Well, I mean, I think, what Johnny alluded to earlier about getting yourself to some 12-step GA meetings, I think is a huge piece. I think that's the start. I mean, obviously, if that's something that is not working, you really need an opportunity to sort of be removed from your current environment and having accessibility to, gamble. I mean, treatment, for some people is an option as well. But just, really needing to do something about the situation at hand is so crucial. And I think the more that you're able to talk about it, the more that you can sometimes hear the insanity of your tone and your words, and being able to just put it out there instead of suppressing all of it, is such a big piece. And I think that that's step number one, like we talked about, that admittance, that admitting piece. Because for a lot of gamblers, there's the two types of gamblers. There's the escape gamblers, and then there's the action gamblers, right? And for a lot of people, and we don't really see this or hear about this, but there's a lot of people that do this escape gambling. So obviously, situations or things that are going on in their life, are stressful, or feeling, a sense of overwhelmness, or whatever the case is. Again, to escape and to not think about the current situation or circumstance. And gambling is that form of escape. And then there's the gamblers that action, 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 that are always just looking for the next bet, the next bet. And you're not really chasing to win, even though your head is telling you that I need to win the money back and that's the purpose. It's the feeling of putting the bet in and getting the adrenaline of what's going to happen. The uncertainty of it. The uncertainty of it is what drives the person to feel that sense of dopamine in the frontal cortex of your head, and that's what sort of drives it. So, like I said, I think 12-step meetings is a huge piece, and getting a sponsor, working a set of steps. And if that doesn't work, or you need time to be removed from that, obviously there's help in inpatient treatment for sure as well.
So my buddy Rod, who we've referenced already, he's got bipolar disorder. He says that when he's in that manic place, he's just absolutely has no defense. He just has no defense against gambling. Did you ever have that place? Did you find that place, Jonny, where you just said, like, I'm helpless here?
I feel like most to all gambling, compulsive gamblers have been there at some point. It's like, yeah, sorry, yeah, yes, sorry. I keep losing my train of thought. I don't know why I'm nervous, but yeah, I'm sorry.
It's good. We appreciate your honesty, buddy. It's fantastic. Allen, do you want to add to that as well?
Sorry.
Your thoughts about
No,
being that in a place where you feel like you're defenseless?
yeah, absolutely. I think, like I said, denial is a huge piece, and then once you get to a place of being, so severe, it's like that helplessness, that feeling of feeling lost, that feeling of understanding or realizing that maybe things are not going to get better. You just kind of get stuck in that place, and it's like it's just the crutch. It becomes the crutch. It becomes the coping mechanism, and it becomes pretty much anything or everything, and almost dominates every realm of thinking in your head, right? So the preoccupation is huge, because what that does to somebody is it allows them to not be present in their current, circumstance, or their relationship, or their family, or their job, and all of that, right? And that's the power of this disease, and the power of feeling helpless, like that there is no solution, and this is just going to dominate, a headspace for a long time, until that person gets down on their knees and admits defeat, and then obviously tries to find resources or help along the way.
Well, when I remember, like, believing that I couldn't have fun anymore if I could drink, and I'm sure it's the same kind of thing that you've experienced with gambling, Jonny, and you with your addiction. Like, it's like, get this idea that life as I know it is over, and in a sense, it is, right? But it opens up doors that I never thought were possible, right? Like, I mean, I certainly don't regret for 1 second giving it up. But when you're in it, it's hard to see that, because the way the disease lies to you, right? Yeah. Were you afraid of that, Jonny? This idea that perhaps fun is over, and
Oh, it was my biggest fear. Was one of the main reasons why I had so many problems stopping, was because I loved it so much. And kind of what Alan touched on there was how there's two different types of gamblers, and I was actually a bit of both, where I found I would gamble to escape. When I had a problem, like a lot of people drink to escape. I would gamble to escape,
Mhm.
and to think like
Mhm.
like the casino and gambling was my best friend, and to think that like I'm about to lose my best friend was a hard thing for
Mm.
me. It's a hard thing to accept, because I mean, you create a relationship with gambling that
Yeah.
you're almost, it's like a love relationship that you have to go, I'm breaking up with you and I'm walking away, and it's and then you call a couple days later and you're like, hey, I miss you. That's pretty much what happened. It's the struggle.
Yeah.
It's that struggle. You get pulled back in, and you have to, I mean, staying strong and really giving it up is the hardest part. And it's tough. I mean, I'm sure, I mean, I know that it's with every addiction, it's hard. But I mean, for me, my addiction was gambling, and it was a hard thing to say. goodbye to.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Alan, grieving is part of the process, isn't it?
Well, it
Mm-hmm.
becomes your identity for such a long time, right? That it's almost like Johnny hit it right on the head. Like it's your best friend. It's everything to you. It's your place where you feel a sense of calmness, even though there's so much destruction ahead or in that process. But the way that your brain sort of gets wired to the component of just the repetitive cycle of it. It's very, very strong, right? Like any habit, eventually, you feel good, doing it. But with gambling, it's like an intense spike in dopamine every time, just like a drug or alcohol would do to somebody. It's the same thing with the gambling component, because of how it affects you and how it really stimulates the reward pleasure center in your brain, where the chase of the next bet and the chase of the next sort of way of feeling that way is what you're really really glued to and attached to, and with the end goal being, I want to get my money back. I need to win my money back. I have to win my money back, and it's just never enough. And I think Johnny hit it on the head earlier. Walking away, even though it's so difficult, it's just the acceptance piece of it is so huge, because admitting it is one thing, but then accepting it is another thing. So, the acceptance piece is, what am I willing to do about it? What am I willing to do about it? So, you know, yeah, it's definitely a very toxic, sort of intoxicating sense of power for sure.
And many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. And Rod talks about two of his friends who, paid the ultimate price. One guy was, he completed suicide, and he had a 2-year-old kid, and it was a good friend of Rod's. One guy lost his lawyer's license. I mean, there's so many, negative stories out there that we can, go through, I suppose. Um, but it's pretty. It gets bad. Johnny, were you aware of some of those stories?
I wasn't aware of those stories, no, but I do know that from what I've heard, and I may be wrong with this fact, but I've heard that gambling addiction has one of the highest suicide rates of any addiction. That's what I've heard, and I could be wrong, so I don't quote me on that, but that's what I'm not
Yeah, yeah,
surprised at all. It's so sad because you can
yeah.
lose you lose everything. I mean, it's a lot of
Right.
other, like drugs and alcohol, it costs money, but you're not losing all your money in the same way. I mean, I guess you can, but
Hmm.
it's not in the same way where
Hmm.
it's like every dollar you make or every dollar you find, I guess it's you're I guess actually I guess all addictions are pretty much the same. But yeah, I
Right.
it's bad.
Alan, you were gonna comment?
Well, I was going to say Johnny's right. The highest suicide rate by far out of any substance um, or addiction or anything like that. Yeah, gambling by far is the highest suicide rate of them all. And yeah, like he said, it's you know, and like you said, Joe, like we follow into the gates of insanity and death. And when money is the drug, John's right. Like it goes a lot, faster, quicker, harder, until the point where you basically leave yourself with nothing, and that feeling of emptiness, that void, the spiritual void is huge, because it's like you put yourself in a spot where you don't know if you're ever going to come back from it, or you don't know if you're ever going to be able to regain any sort of financial dependence or independence, and flexibility in your life. So it's a very scary, very very scary disease for sure.
But there is a way out, and I wanted to give it a couple of numbers and websites that we have. First of all, Gamblers Anonymous. Of course, there's gamblersanonymous.org. You can visit that website, and there'll be meeting locations near you or wherever you happen to be. And if you believe the treatment would be the option for you, of course, we have Addiction Rehab Toronto, where you're at, Alan, and addictionrehabtoronto.ca. And there's the number for any and all addictions that you might have. Um, so, if you have a problem, ask for help. If you think you might have a problem, look into it. Maybe ask some people who are close to you and what they think, or maybe ask some people who have some experience in that area and see what they have to say. Also, this show is partnered with the Believe, Become, Be You mentorship for kids, which is, I think, important. That's believebecomebeYou.com. And the key here is like, this is becoming so accessible for kids now, isn't it? It's something that's really, out there, isn't it, Alan?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at the commercials that have been put out there over the last year and a half, Jimmy Fox, Wayne Gretzky, Aaron Paul, Drake, some of these big celebrities, who kids really, really look up to, are such a big influence and are so instrumental in that influence, are promoting these sort of things. It just makes a kid or a youth very, very impressionable to that gravitational pull of these famous actors and musicians and sports Hall of Famers are doing this. This must be something that's cool. This must be something that's good. And how do I get myself involved with this now? Because they're seeing it.
Right.
Yeah, there was a little plug last year on Sportsnet. I believe I can't remember, but I did hear about this and I read about this, where the association that sponsored gambling actually chewed out Sportsnet because they didn't reference the lines and the ability to be able to bet every 30 seconds or something like that, or every 40. It was some sort of crazy sequence, and these advertisers and these sponsorships are always wanting the ability to have people be exposed to the message. Can gamble. Here's the options. Here's the resources. Here's the number. Even before games start now, they do the pre-games of sports analytics about and then what do you see after
the line?
What do you see at the line? The line where it's moved, all of that stuff, right? So that has become, unfortunately, a part of the sports ritual and a part of the sports game, where it's just like it's asking someone who you think is going to win or lose, and then it's like, well, this is who's going to win, and here's how you can make some money off of it, quote unquote, right? So that's just a part of what's happening in this generation now.
Yeah, I've got a friend of mine he's got an 11-year-old son who's the kid's really on the ball, and he just said to him, he said, "Dad, why is there so much gambling going on during the ball game? And just one thing after another." And it's they're seeing it for sure. Yeah. Well, listen, guys, I really appreciate you guys being on the show today. This is a very important topic. I think that needs to have some light shone on it. And I think we did today, and it's great. And thank you, both for your honesty. Jonny, thank you for coming on and doing this. This is very invaluable for, information for somebody who could be having a problem, and maybe somebody could see this down the road, save themselves from having more pain than they need, right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Joe, for having me, and Alan also for being here. It's good. It's just good to get the knowledge out there. So that's my pleasure for being here. Thank you for having me.
Jonny, you're an inspiration, man. To see how far you've come, and hearing your story, it's great to see where you're at now and coming out the other side. And your message, your information, your experience, your lived experience can make a huge difference, and it probably has made a big difference in somebody's life, right? So keep doing what you're doing, man.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
It's been an honor to be here with you, and it's been an honor to have Joe ask me to do this as well. I'm very, very honored and privileged to be able to do this. So thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Jonny. Say hi to the folks at ART. Appreciate that. We'll have more when we come back.
Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Rely on Walton Restoration's 40-plus years of excellence in residential and commercial restoration. Their strong reputation is built on workmanship, professionalism, and outstanding customer service. Trust Walton as your dependable partner in emergencies, serving Durham, Kawartha, and Northumberland regions. Call 905-725-5666 or visit waltonrestoration.com. Experience top-tier workmanship and service. Walton Restoration, the trusted name in property restoration. Join satisfied customers like me.
Parents, what's the biggest fear for kids 10 to 14? A future they think they can't handle. At Believe, Become, Be You, we know confidence in the future is a habit we can build. Our course doesn't just prepare kids for the future, it seeds them with skills they will use now. For a limited time, the I Believe in Me Foundation is offering the first 1,000 kids and their parents 1 year free access. This priceless opportunity will save you over $2,000. This isn't just a course. It's a journey in developing life-enhancing skills that will grow with your child, fostering gritty minds, creative futures, and better bonds. Get signed up now at BelieveBecomeBeYou.com. That's BelieveBecomeBeYou.com.
And we want to thank all the folks who make this show possible. These are friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great folks. We highly recommend them all. Thank you for your support of Canadian and local sports. A reminder that the show is available on iTunes, Spotify, Breaker, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, and Pocket Casts, as well as the Spanglish Network, Buzz TV Live, and Zingo TV. Also, check out the show on YouTube. All of our past shows are there, shorts. Like and subscribe. It's absolutely, positively free. Thanks once again to Jonny Silverstein and Allen Kharlip for joining us. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in the early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today. And let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678. MNP, a leading Canadian national accounting, tax, and business accounting firm. MNP proudly serves in response to the need of their clients in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, MNP provides a collaborative, cost-effective approach to do business and personal strategies to help people and organizations to succeed across the country and around the world. With local offices in Oshawa, Mississauga, Burlington, and more, their team is here to support you. Visit mnp.ca today to learn more. Rooted in 60 years of tradition, Sleepy Hollow is a private golf club with a friendly community of members just minutes from Toronto. With mature trees and rolling fairways, Sleepy Hollow provides a challenging and enjoyable experience for passionate golfers. Enjoy great golf, amazing dining, and a picturesque patio second to none. Visit sleepyhollowcountryclub.com. Joe Tilley here. My wife Penny Claire and I recently took an amazing trip to Egypt and Jordan with Trip Oppo. And here are our top 10 must-dos. Last but not least, we relaxed at a luxury resort and took a dip in the famous Dead Sea. This beautiful resort was a perfect way to cap off our incredible adventure in Egypt and Jordan. After days of exploring ancient ruins and bustling markets, it was wonderful to just kick back, put on a little mud, and soak up the sun by the Dead Sea. Oh, I almost forgot to mention the amazing cuisine in Egypt and Jordan. Don't forget to try the delicious local food like mouth-watering Egyptian barbecue. And the best part is that our Trip Oppo tour includes almost all of the meals, so you can indulge in the local cuisine without worrying about opening your wallet. I would highly recommend that you book your next trip through Trip Oppo. Call them today. Guests on Joe Tilley Sports receive a gift certificate from Classica Imports. Top of the line imported men's clothing. Check out the Classica Essential Collection now. Go to shopclassica.com.